Good evening, everybody. Hello. Hi, Scott. Okay. This is a town council work session, so we're not going to call the regular meeting to order until 6 p.m., but we have two work sessions. One is Stotts Mill land use application, introduction to land use, and it's James Lint, and also Habitat for Humanity proposal. But before we do that, just so we identify a couple people in the room, Tim Gagan is joining us tonight. Tim is right there. And he is a professional who's going to assist us with our staff and our council with some things that we need to take care of in the very near future. One is to assist council in finding an interim manager. I have worked on this a little bit and have not been very successful, so Tim has agreed to come in for a couple of weeks. I know him as the Breckenridge Town Manager when I used to be the Director of the Colorado Association of Ski Towns. He's also going to assist council and staff with projects as needed, and basically the daily operations, just to have someone in that chair. He's going to be here for approximately 2 weeks, and he's also going to contact all of council to see if he can set up a time to just talk to you guys so we can get some idea of what direction we want to go on the interim deal. Jeanette Darnauer is not here, but we also are asking her to help us a little bit because we have not had any communications getting out to the community for a little while now, like on and off for months and months. So Jeanette's going to help us improve our transparency and get some communication out from town staff and council. We also need greater dissemination of things that are happening policy-wise, land use-wise, and council-wise. So she's not here, but she will be here, I imagine, by 6 o'clock. So having introduced Tim, I'll let James take it.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Mark.
For purposes of agenda planning, we would like to maybe try to get to a wrap-up on the first item by about 5:35 if possible. We'll see how it goes. So this first work session item is the Stotts Mill introduction meeting. This evening, staff has programmed a brief presentation on the background and the process, and then we would like to have the applicant just give an introductory presentation on the proposal. And then after this applicant's presentation, staff would suggest taking limited public comment on what, and then providing council comments on what types of information the council would like to see going into the public hearing, which is scheduled for the next meeting on September 27th. It should also be noted that staff has programmed a work session on the traffic piece in Southside, as well as the mitigation measures that could be included for that September 27th meeting. We're going to have SGN, the town's consulting engineer, here to provide comments at that meeting and discuss the traffic report, and that would happen before the Stotts Mill public hearing on the 27th. So the proposal for Stotts Mill is to construct 156 dwelling units, 96 of which are proposed as multifamily units, and they're proposed in this corridor. They're adjacent to Southside Drive in 4 separate buildings. You've got a site plan in your packet as well. And then the applicant is also proposing 60 single-family free-market units, 60 single-family units that are proposed in kind of a similar configuration to the 2009 approvals. The site is an 18-acre property. It's located east of Southside Drive and just north of the Rio Grande Trail and Basalt High School. As you can see on the future land use map, it's located in the urban growth boundary, and it's designated as medium density residential with some public open space kind of on the fringes. Process-wise, the applicant received approval for 110 dwelling units in 2009, and the applicant is asking to reinstate the approvals on the single-family portion because there's not much change on the single-family portion. But then they're asking to obtain R4MD, which is the R4 mixed density residential zone district, sketch plan approval in that zone district on the piece for the multifamily, which has grown since the 2009 approvals. If they were to receive the R4MD sketch plan approvals, they would have to come back for another final plan round with the P and Z and the town council on the multifamily piece after that. Discussion items, staff identified a series of discussion items that are in your P and Z review packets. We also have them on the wall right here. We would like the council to keep those in mind as the applicant's presenting. Basically, they are density, the affordable housing program component of it, childcare and daycare. The applicant didn't originally have childcare in the revised proposal. Through the P and Z discussions, they've added a daycare component. Parks, open space, as well as the tennis center. The applicant has proposed to provide parks in a similar configuration to the 2009 approvals. And then we've had a tennis center group that's looking to develop an indoor tennis center in the project. The applicant has indicated that they are willing to work with that group to see if it's workable. And then traffic mitigation and a Cody Lane roundabout. As I indicated, we're going to have a work session with the traffic engineers on the September 27th meeting. One of the improvements that's been identified as significant mitigation improvement for traffic has been a roundabout, a mini roundabout at Cody Lane. We've got a little drawing of it there, and it's in your packet as well. But we'll have more discussion at the September 27th meeting on that. Southside Drive cross-section and traffic calming. Southside Drive's kind of a straight country lane there, and there's been concern about speeds and traffic there. So that's a discussion item. The Allison Lane connection, which is proposed in this area. Allison Lane goes up into the south side subdivision. In the past, the fire district has indicated that they'd like to have that connection. There's been some neighbors that have had some concerns, so we'd like to talk about that for discussions. And then phasing and vested rights. So, as I indicated this evening, we'd like to hear a presentation from the applicant on the proposal, and then take some public comments, and then get some council comments on what additional types of information you'd like to see for the public hearing on September 27th. So we do have the applicants here this evening. We got Mark Chain as well as Briston Peterson representing MSP1. You guys want to come up here and I'll operate your PowerPoint?
How are you? Hello. Hi. Well, let me just, since we have a short time, let me get going on this. I'm Mark Chain at Mark Chain Consulting in Carbondale. And I see Gary's still on, well, not still, he's on the council again. I think Bernie was on the P&Z when this came through in the mid-2000s. Pretty similar, the layout, the roads, the directions, the connections, they're all the same. Why? We thought it was a good physical layout. The change really, the single family is a little bit more constrained. These lots on the eastern flank by the ranch here, they're a little bit smaller. These were bigger before. And then the multifamily area is a bit different, and that's 4 24-unit, right now proposed to be apartment buildings for long-term rentals. And why is the density a little bit different? Well, the last project, the big thing that happened, the economy changed. You know, basically not just the economy changing a little, it was a big collapse. The other thing is that there were, you know, I'm all for affordable housing, but when 100 out of 110 units have some kind of restriction on them, it just was a little much. And the developer, that's Briston Peterson, he's the P of MSP1, they probably would not have gotten through and had their financial wherewithal still with them. James did note that this is for reinstatement of the PUD for the single family. The single family is not going to get going unless this multi-family component is approved. So I don't think you have to worry about tomorrow someone's going to want to be out there and installing infrastructure. I touched on the density just slightly. You can see it's medium density and open space. It's almost in the same configuration as in the master plan itself. It's right near the school and the urban growth boundary. We think it's a good location. We will meet the affordable housing guidelines of the town. Right now, I think it's 21 rental units and then 10 single-family units, whether there be lots that are construction ready with utilities to them, or a deed-restricted home that's already constructed. RE1 is a different affordable housing notch to the project. We talked with them last time, and this time they would prefer some kind of affordable housing package as opposed to getting a fee in lieu of land or land itself. We've met with them 3 times, including 1 week ago, and right now Jeff Gatlin, he's proceeding with all the housing opportunities in the valley, so he's juggling a lot of balls right now. That's the chief operating officer for the school district itself. Child care, 4,000-foot child care facility on basically was lot 37 with 38 being the open space for that. Brisbane's a strong driver, really. In his previous life, he used to develop daycares, and he's convinced me, too, that perhaps a daycare could be better located, somewhat closer to 82 or near the other centers that are bringing people all the way down to here. But if that's the choice of the P&Z and the council, that will be a condition of approval. Traffic mitigation, I'm not going to get into that in detail because I'm not a traffic engineer. Our engineer isn't here, your engineer isn't here. Right now, the comments are really how are the funds going to be secured for Stotts Mill portion of the roundabout, which may be located right here. There has been land set aside if there are traffic mitigation measures to be located at what is called Running Brook Drive and Southside Drive. We think the parks are in the proper location, in the proper size. Our preferred proposal to have a more passive park. Right now, the obligation from the P&Z is to have a tennis center there. They would have a couple of years to raise the funding to build it. And once again, if that's the condition with the annexation, so be it. We look at this more as a neighborhood park, and will the big park here in the neighborhood be able to be totally utilized? That is the issue there. We have no issue with the Southside Drive cross-section. It is what it is. It's being designed. What we have seen is acceptable and appropriate. Allison Lane, this was the connection before. If there's a concern about the traffic, the owners of the project would be happy to provide what the final conditions are by the town and the fire district itself. Vested rights, we asked for a little bit more time. It's not that, the goal of Bristol is to go in and put all the infrastructure in at one time, but we also experience the downside of the last recession where there really wasn't a market for a number of years. That's why we asked for extra time, as long as there is the ability to be extended if there is a real market problem or financial problem related to the country. We're fine with that. Bristol, you have some other things you want to add, so I'll hand it to you at this time.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Kristen Peterson. As Mark said, I'm one of the members of MSP 1. We're an entity that has 3 major holds in the Roaring Fork Valley. Stotts Mill is actually a property that we have been optioning with Alice Stott for close to 10 years. So I think it's important to understand that we're a development team that's committed to the Roaring Fork Valley. I actually, my day job is I own a general contracting company and employ about 18 people here in the Roaring Fork Valley. Our office is actually in Basalt, so I'm vested in Basalt for the long run. Other holds that we have is a 12-acre parcel in Carbondale and a 24-acre parcel in Carbondale, better known as Marketplace. And I'm sure you've probably read in the paper those projects over the years. And we're a development entity that has the financial means to effectively perform on a project like this of scale. But as Mark said, we're very sensitive to the economic conditions. If all things were equal, if I were sitting here today with an approval, I'd be putting in infrastructure tomorrow. The goal is to try and receive approvals by the end of this calendar year with the town council here, and be in a position to break ground early spring of next year. When we look at this project in totality, we would develop the entire project at one time, just the way the North Park and the South Park is set up. The North Park is designed not only to act as a buffer between South Side and Stotts Mill, but it also serves our stormwater management and detention area. So it acts as a buffer, but also provides some open space and recreational area for the occupants of South Side there. When we look at the mass grading of the site, we would do the mass grading all at one time in terms of our cut fill analysis. When we look at our utility installation, we would do all that work at one time as well. As Mark indicated, we've been through the P&Z approval process, and the outcome of that I thought was extremely well. I thought it was very favorable in terms of the constructive comments that we received from P&Z. While we didn't agree with it, we do agree with it today, the notion of the daycare facility. That I understand that there's a demand for what I call micro daycare facilities to be scattered throughout the Basalt community. And the proposal there is that we would build the daycare facility. We would structure into a master lease with the daycare operators, and also run our management office for the apartment units. The 96 apartment units that we're proposing, we would develop, build, own, and maintain for our own account. So it would be a long-term investment for the MSP group, where we would provide on-site management for the apartment complex. And as Mark said earlier in his presentation, we feel that rental housing is affordable housing. And the structure of what we tried to create here in Stotts Mill is to have the ability to have apartment units, single-family units, potentially duplex units, triplex units in the main core, and then the larger single-family units on the eastern side. So we're actually looking at potentially 2 or 3 sectors within the affordable housing context for Stotts Mill. So it's important to understand our vision. I also am an owner of Garfield Avenue Apartments, and I think I shared this with you before. It's a 58-unit apartment complex in Carbondale. And on a daily basis, just to give you some sense, on a daily basis, we probably turn down 3 to 4 credible leads a day for people looking for housing, for apartments. And that's just in the Carbondale community. I could share with you, between the people that I employ and the subcontractors and suppliers that I work with in my day job, between friends and family, I probably have 50% of this project sold out. As Mark shared with you, we met with the RE1 school district. That meeting basically concluded that they need about 100 housing units between Glenwood and Basalt. We feel that our project is ripe to hit the market for affordable, attainable units within the Roaring Fork Valley and Basalt. We feel that this project's very important because it will help sort of solidify or shore up a housing demand that is in dire need in not only the Basalt community but the Roaring Fork Valley community. And if we don't provide this level of housing for family and for the worker bees of this community, I think the backbone of this community will be lost. And it's not just the Roaring Fork, it's a valley-wide issue, and I think this is just one of many projects that hopefully can help solve the equation in this complex dynamics of affordable, attainable housing. You know, our business goal is to stay true to our word in terms of even the free market housing, to provide density. And by providing density, smaller housing units, we can offer new product that is less than or equal to the existing housing market in terms of the sales price that we've been observing in the community. We have a presentation that we would like to show you. Just the stills, but we have actually a video model that could, did we share that with you the last presentation?
That was P and Z.
Okay. We have a video model, if James could get that to work, that actually does a flyover throughout the entire community, and it goes down the streets and the alleys that I thought we shared with you at some point. Well, it's a little different, Mark, because this has a little different flavor to it. As Mark said, the core of the project, the 60 single-family units are actually modeled after Old Town Basalt, where all the orientation, James, if you could go to some of those stills, basically you have all of the housing units facing the streetscape, where you have walkability, you have porches, you have sort of the reinforcement of the streetscape, and then all of the parking is effectively on the backside in the alleyways, where all the utilities are served in the alleyways. And the idea here is, again, is affordable, attainable units by size and by density. So these are some still shots. James, if you could flip. Yeah, so this is the main shot looking down sort of from the multifamily. Mark, if you could point that out. Effectively looking east down the main road there. And you'll see that we alternated the parking, not only to accommodate the fire truck access, but we staggered the parking so that you never experience a streetscape where you have parking on both sides of the street. So we alternate the parking on there. And the idea is to create the scale and the human scale, both with the architecture, the features, the curb cuts, where it becomes effectively almost like Old Town Basalt is our goal and concept here. Do you have some other shots you can go to, James? So this is a shot looking down an alleyway, where the alleys are designed to, that's where we'll run all of our utilities and infrastructure down the alleyways. But the houses have the opportunities to have carports, open air parking, enclosed garage units, potentially have bedroom units, office studios, et cetera, above the garage units on the back side. If you could go to another shot. This is actually the shot on the north side up here. No, it's actually looking the other way, Mark, from there looking back. So this would be the north park on your left, and it's showing the streetscape here. Another shot there. This is a shot of the multifamily unit actually coming from, Mark, the southern side. No, down there. Right there on that corner, right there. Okay. So down to the right would be the South Park. There we're in discussion and with the tennis group that through this process we thought that we'd better serve to have a more passive park where somebody could kick a ball, throw a football, set up a wiffle ball game, throw a frisbee, walk a dog, etc. But through the P&Z process, we got approached by a tennis group that wants to build 3 indoor tennis courts that they've been looking up and down the entire region. Our personal feeling is we don't feel it's appropriate for this location. I think that it's more better served for a regional park like Crown Mountain Park or something. But I'm not going to view it as a deal breaker by any means. I think what it does is it does encourage parties outside of Stotts Mill to drive into the community and use those facilities and depart from the Stotts Mill area. Yes, there is a trade-off. Staff has said, well, look, if the tennis court facility comes in, you don't have to develop the South Park. I'm more focused on what's right for the community and what's right for the occupants of Southside and Stotts Mill as a whole. So that's not a deal breaker from our perspective. I just want to make sure whatever we do, it's in keeping with scale and architecture that fits within the Stotts Mill project that we've created. And these are some more shots. This is actually a shot where the daycare facility would be. We actually modified the design where we included a curb cut here on the east side where we would have a drop-off area for the daycare operator. And the more I dug into the daycare operation, the more I understand the demands for it. I actually traveled around and visited some of the daycare facilities here in Basalt and talked to a few of the daycare teachers. And one side says that it would be a very nice amenity for the occupants of Southside because I envision them as, working folks that could drop their child off right in a local daycare operator and go to work and come back and pick them up. So there's something to be said about having that asset within the community and the fabric. My personal opinion is I think daycare is a regional issue that should be solved by a large care daycare facility. As Mark shared with you, I've built a number of daycare facilities on the East Coast and understand what it takes to build a true daycare center. So I think this is just one little solution to solve a large regional issue for daycare. And we'd be more than happy to contribute to that solution. Then this is looking across the cross street where the multifamilies on the left and single families are on the south. So this is some of that streetscape that I was describing to you with the architecture where the architecture that we're proposing is very traditional forms, porches and decks on the front to encourage streetscape, to encourage sort of community interaction within Southside. There is a bike path and a walking path that actually connects the two parks. And this was a recommendation that actually came from staff that I thought was a brilliant idea that allows us to connect the North Park to the South Park. So there's an easy way to navigate whether you're walking or riding a bicycle between the North Park and the South Park. So that's our presentation. If you have any additional questions or comments.
Thanks, Mr. Peterson. This was barely time for a work session for us. We aren't able to take public comment at work sessions, and we clearly cannot take public comment if we are going to have any council questions or comments. So, Gary.
Cool. Well, it's kind of funny to be back here listening to this. So I have two questions. My first question is, last time we got in a huge debate about this piece and that piece, and you telling us it's not working because it won't financially work. Is there a way you could give us a financial analysis of this development so we could have our financial analyst look at it? And so I don't want to get into back and forth. I mean, I think we're close because it's pretty close to what we had last time. So at least for me, if I could see the financials of the project and understand what does the daycare cost you to build? What are the financial details of how this all works? I think it'll provide all of us an understanding of what it takes for you to do this, and if we keep going down the road of because we're going to get into traffic, and the traffic, I'm sure I've already heard from some Southside residents, they're just really concerned about what's going to happen. And so, but if I can see what the financial analysis is, I'm well, we can't ask these guys to solve it because they're just making it, and our analyst has said that. So if that's one thing that can be done, I think that'll help the discussions.
Garrett, I'd be more than happy to provide you with that. I could share with you that, depending on how you count the numbers, we have between 1.5 and 1.8 million dollars in this process. When we started this, 10 years ago? And that's a sunk cost that we're still chasing. Right, wrong, or indifferent, we don't own the land. We've been paying Alice Stott, and God bless him, Lonnie, who passed away. We've been paying him for 10 years, option money. I'd be more than happy to provide you with a financial analysis. I could share with you that there's probably more profit and more revenue to be made on a custom single-family home on Red Mountain than there is in this project. So my partners and I have been scratching our heads saying, why have we been hanging in there for 10 years to do this? Why is because there's part of me as a person and a party that's been part of this fabric of this community for close to 30 years, where when I first moved here, I used to live in Mountain Air Apartments on 4th Street in Carbondale that no longer exist. And I've been fortunate to work my way all the way up through running my own business, owning my own business. And I have seen what has happened to the Aspen fabric. I've seen what's happening to Basalt. I'm seeing what's happened to Carbondale. And we happen to be a group of developers that's on a kick to try and preserve guys like me that grew up and raised a family and got married and did all those things that actually had affordable, attainable housing in this valley. And so part of us says, why are we doing this? I'm doing it because I employ 18 people, and they drive from Rifle, Silt, Newcastle, and Eagle up and down Highway 82 every day, almost 3 hours on the road to go to work. And we need to solve this problem. So I'll be more than happy to give you financial analysis. We are in the business to make profit, otherwise I wouldn't be doing this. But I could share with you, we're not knocking it out of the park. Because I don't know what we have upon the exit of this. We're giving you our best shot, and that's why we're here. And that's why I've been here for the past 10 years.
Cool. Well, we're not looking to just chip away at your profit.
Yeah.
I'm looking here to see financially how you're gonna make all this work. I mean, one of the things is, last time, I think at the end, we were very excited about the project, and we wanted it to happen, and it
Yeah.
didn't. So at least this time I'll understand more. If it doesn't happen, it's because this broke its back or something.
Yeah, I could share with you, we're looking at the 60 single-family lots to effectively be a push and be in a position to own and maintain and manage the 96 apartments. I mean, so what our eye is on is a successful project, but from a business pro forma standpoint, it's the 96 apartments. I mean, that's really what it is. We're trading dollars to get this effectively developed for the 60 single-family lots. By the time, you look at approximately $30,000 a lot to develop each lot, because that's the cost. And you look at the economics of the land and the land carry and the architecture and the engineering, we're effectively trading dollars on that to put ourselves in a position to have a long-term investment with the apartment complex. But that's the executive summary. I'll be more than happy to share the details with you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. We're just gonna take a couple more quick ones because we are really badly eating into the next work session. Jen?
Okay, so I'm just gonna go through what my comments were, and I'm gonna start off with, as being a new council member, it seems, and I'm requesting an education that piggybacks along with what Mark was saying, that the long-term solutions need to be led possibly by the town of Basalt, not development applications, and reimbursed by applicants to town of Basalt, knowing full well what the portion share cost material expectations are. So that's just kind of my summary general because I am going to then state that I support the need for a general reduction in overall anticipated build-out of Southside to sufficiently mitigate traffic impacts or provide real funding and solutions between the big players of Habitat, Ski Coast, Southside, and Stotts Mill to mitigate and resolve traffic issues into year 2036. And with that, providing examples of thinking outside the box to help reduce traffic without grand infrastructure costs. And so I'm not inclined to improve until these long-term solutions are within consensus and written for cost share mechanisms. And it's kind of the snake eats its tail thing, and that's my statement of, I do support the requirements of Stotts Mill to be 1/3 responsible for any mini roundabout, design and cost, and contributing to traffic studies, especially keen on the post-phase 1 check-in. And I commend you for the childcare building. I like the 5,000 square foot. I'm gonna go big on that one. Whatever the grandest amount that you can put in there that is cost effective will be so greatly appreciated.
Yeah, can I respond? So, real quick, we have no issue with what we agreed to at P and Z with regard to our associated cost of the roundabout. So I think we're in alignment there. I think at some point, your four founding fathers of Basalt set up an urban growth boundary and set up a zoning map, and we're responding to that. This project is exactly with what your forefathers or whoever did the macro plan of Basalt. You know, there's a lot of talk and chatter about this project, that project. This project's real. I mean, been sitting here for 10 years trying to get this thing approved. And so I think you need to evaluate, you know, what this community really wants and weigh the pros and cons of this application with what the values of this community are and make your determination.
Thanks, Mr. Peterson.
Yeah.
You know what, we need to come to a close on this one, because we don't have nearly enough time to weigh in like we should be able to, but
Well, I'm behind you 100%.
that's fair.
We'll have another shot.
Hmm?
We're gonna see this at,
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna, exactly, we've got lots left, but I'll just say I've supported extension of your vested rights, the project in general. My whole deal is gonna be about, does this really, can the traffic really be fixed? Can it really be fixed? Because I hear from people on Southside every day of my life, and I have to believe their pain is real. So, thank you very much for coming in, and we'll see you again.
Okay,
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Is it dark in here?
Well, they'll turn the lights.
Okay.
back on.
Oh, okay. I thought I
Think
was,
you were
I
watching
thought I
a
was
movie?
fainting. I thought I was fainting,
Like Hillary.
yeah. Okay, the next item is Habitat for Humanity, and that's James also?
Hey, Mark, thanks for wearing your purple Longhorn colors tonight. That was good.
Did you do that on purpose?
probably not.
Subconsciously, he did.
So- Okay, James. James has it.
Yeah, this is the second item. It is a proposal by Habitat for Humanity in conjunction with the school district. They would like to construct approximately 27 housing units behind the high school. And the property is part of Basalt High School property. They're located in the town boundaries, but outside the urban growth boundary, as you can see on the future land use map. The yellow there along the Rio Grande Trail is the urban growth boundary. The blue is the high school property. And so the process staff has identified for review is that they would have to do a pre-application agreement, similar to our pre-development agreements that we've been doing, before having it go through a development review process. But staff felt it was a good idea to first do a work session with the council to get some feedback related to the council's position on allowing for affordable housing project to either be done outside the urban growth boundary or amending the urban growth boundary to accommodate this property. Just as a bit of master plan background, the master plan in 1999 left the high school property out of the urban growth boundary, as there was some concern about the neighboring properties being able to develop. And then it was also left out of the urban growth boundary in 2007 when we did the update. In 2007, the master plan included language about strictly enforcing the urban growth boundary. So in order to develop such a project, the town would either have to amend the master plan to allow for affordable housing outside the urban growth boundary, or change the future land use map in the urban growth boundary to take in the property. So we thought before doing the pre-development agreement, we wanted some feedback from the council on this item. I'm sorry. Yes. The pre-application agreement, I apologize. Staff would suggest hearing just a brief presentation from the applicant on what the proposal is, and then getting some council initial feedback on the urban growth boundary. So we do have Scott Gilbert here from Habitat for Humanity, and is Dana still here? Oh, Dana's back behind me there, so I'll kind of move out of the way.
Scott, if we could ask you to keep it as brief as possible, because as you can see, we didn't really get to weigh in on the last one, and I think you need to hear from us, and so
Want me to talk
leave
fast?
us some time. Talk fast or short,
Okay,
whichever.
good evening. Yeah, excited to be back in front of you. Last time I was here, we bought a lot for $10, and it worked out pretty well. And Asaf had his 40-something surgery yesterday, and he thinks he's knocked some of the pain issues. We're pretty excited for Monday. So we're glad to be here. We've been doing diligence in this project for a year, mostly to make sure it made sense from our end before we came and got your input, and we're excited to hear that. We all know affordable housing is a huge issue in the valley. As I understand, there was a study about a year and a half ago that said there's probably a need for 200+ units here in Basalt, and so we know it's an issue. We know it's especially a challenge for the school district, and Jeff, who's representing the school districts here, and he'll talk about the specific teacher issues, because we see this as a project between Habitat and RE1. Our plan, which Dana will take you through, is for 27 homes, the vast majority of which be duplexes, and at least 50% of those homes would be for teachers, and the second 50% would be for workforce housing. This is not a typical sort of Habitat poverty sort of challenge. This is workforce housing project. Hey, Rob, why don't you slide up? And we've had conversations to date. We've met at times with Susan and Bach. We've met with BEF. We've met with Basalt staff on the project initially, James and Susan. We've talked to RE1 at length, both the staff as well as the elected board. And we've talked to Pitkin County staff as well, because the property's in Pitkin County. And the nice benefit of that is they have an affordable housing fund they don't know how to spend. And staff is very interested in getting involved in this. They said they have enough money to pay for all the infrastructure, which is in the $2 million range. So it's not too often we get a project where we have a tailwind of $2 million laying out there to help us get ready to go vertical, which is what we do. We're not real big on developing land with roads and whatnot, but vertical is pretty nice. Dana met with Auden yesterday morning, 8 a.m. to fill him in because he couldn't be here. And then, you know, our goal in the end is collaboration. We say we build homes, build hope, build community. And I'm looking forward to working with you and the community of Basalt to make this a reality. So before Dana shows you the quick plan, I think Jeff will talk about things from a school board.
Yeah, so as you know, voters approved our bond issue in November of last year. And with that was funds committed to the district starting an affordable housing rental program. So all of the units that we're going to be acquiring are going to go to our staff for rent. And so that's certainly an important part of it. But knowing that we have an opportunity to partner with Habitat on that ownership piece, which is certainly something that we're interested in, that we know is going to have a big impact on staff, and ultimately is going to start to solve the puzzle of affordable housing for our staff, not only retaining but also, or not only recruiting, but retaining staff in long term. So the idea of this ownership piece is unique from what we're doing with the bond project, and it's really exciting for that. Because we do continue to hear stories. We have Suzanne Wheeler Del Piccolo, who's here, principal at Basalt Elementary School, who can tell us all plenty of stories of staff that either didn't want to come, that left, that moved down valley, all of those types of things. And again, just to kind of harp on, knowing that we're going to start solving that with our program, but then also knowing that we have a possible transition program into ownership is really exciting. So, thanks.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Dana Dallavetta with Habitat. So our original site plan, as Scott mentioned, we've been working on this project since about December of 2015. It didn't look like it printed well, so I put it up here for you, but the basic summary is that that was between 40 to 44 units is what we looked at originally. After that point, we did a little bit more due diligence and realized that there was a couple of items that we needed to mitigate, one of which was some geological concerns from the hillside above. And the other was an irrigation ditch that's existing and is piped underground through the parcel right now. And then the further issue is that we have had some meetings with community members. We've met with Bach in the past and heard some feedback about both density, traffic, parking, things like that. And so as a result of all of those items, we revised the site plan. So the resulting site plan is up here for you. And this is showing 27 units. Right now we're saying between 26 to 28 units in duplex and triplex buildings. We're still kind of finalizing that site plan, but that's the general idea. It'll be accessed from a single road on the west side of the high school. That was a request of the high school to try to keep the track and field area and the school bus turnaround as kind of school area, and then access to these homes from the western portion. I've spoken with all the utility providers, water, sewer, electric, gas. Everybody has said that there shouldn't be an issue with providing service to this site, so that's good. And then we've also had a couple of discussions with the fire marshal about what their requirements would be. Again, a couple of issues to work out, but no large hurdles. So let's see, James, could you go to the next plan just to kind of give them a general idea of what the overall site looks like? And these are all just very conceptual renderings, but they give you a little bit of an idea of how this project is sited relative to high school. So the designers are really trying to think about what Jeff mentioned, long-term livability, so that people that move in here want to stay here and be a part of the community. The site plan changes that reduce the density also brought in some opportunities. We were able to add sidewalks, some parallel parking to address some of the parking concerns. And kind of respond to some of the concerns that were raised. The units are designed to live up, so we know there's a concern of a large building being right in front of them, and hopefully the living area should be able to kind of look up and above out to what's really a pretty spectacular view. In addition, on the site plan that I'll just show you on this one, we're trying to maintain kind of good connectivity with the community at large, and so this small building here is proposed to be a community pavilion that would be at the base of the sledding hill and the hiking trail, and would kind of be a place for community members at large to gather. So I know we're here, in part to talk about how this project relates to the urban growth boundary relative to the master plan, but I just wanted to bring up a couple of points in how this project does fit within some of the goals of the master plan, not that withstanding. So first of all, the project is for sale housing, and Habitat's model is typically to provide housing between 28 and 30% of a family's household income. So that fits perfectly within what your master plan has. The units would be permanently deed restricted to maintain affordability. Second, the site, we believe, fits pretty well into the fabric of the existing community and development of the Southside neighborhood. It's close to transit, obviously close to schools, close to recreation the town of Basalt has to offer. Third, Habitat, we like to think, builds some of the most efficient homes in the valley. We have some of the lowest blower door testing in Carbondale, if anyone's familiar with those. And so we would take those standards that we've developed in our other homes and bring them to this project as well, which I know is important to the town. And then finally, it's a really collaborative project in nature. First starting out with the partnership with RE1, hopefully a partnership with Pitkin County, and then the model of Habitat in general. The homeowners are required to put in sweat equity in a certain number of hours in the construction of their home, and then we'll bring in community members to help with the labor as well. 50% of our labor comes from volunteers. So we really feel like this is a community project at its heart. So, Scott.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Okay. I would beg your indulgence because there is a critical issue that we just need to have
weigh in on a little bit, and that is this urban ground, you know, whether we ignore the urban growth boundary, whether we change the urban growth boundary. So I think we need to hear a little bit from staff on that, so we can go down the line and give you some thoughts.
Staff would suggest that actually changing the urban growth boundary to accommodate the property would probably be a better option than actually changing the master plan to allow for affordable housing outside the urban growth boundary. We've traditionally had in our master plan strict urban growth boundary. We think that there.
James, can you raise it up a little?
Yeah, I apologize. That's my voice there. We've traditionally had a master plan that has had the stringent urban growth boundary, and it would have more implications if you were to change the master plan language to allow for affordable housing and urban level development outside the urban growth boundary. So staff would suggest if you're interested in allowing for a project or a concept like this, that you would change the urban growth boundary to accommodate the property.
Can you tell us the process and approximate time frame to do that?
Yeah, staff would suggest taking kind of the amendment concurrent with the other site plan review pieces. So you're probably looking at the 3 to 5 month process that the applicant would be going through.
Oh, we might need a little bit of that.
Yeah, might be a little bit.
Okay,
But
Mark.
Isn't there an annexation agreement in place?
There is an annexation agreement in place. It basically accommodates the existing high school. It doesn't expand on allowing for housing on the site currently.
And other counselors, as far as okay, not okay with changing the urban growth boundary?
I'm okay.
Okay,
Mark?
I'm okay.
Gary?
I'm okay.
The other Mark, Gary.
My
Byrne?
other brother there.
I'm okay, subject to getting some parameters and rationale as to why we're doing this, that we would apply to similar projects. I don't want to be doing this every time ad hoc.
Right. And I'm definitely okay with it. I mean, I think that once you, you know, once there's a school there, I mean, we don't have any say over where schools go, so they can completely ignore land use regulations, and so, but once that has happened, I think we have to be supportive of where the school is, so I'm okay in general with changing it also. So we only have about 5 minutes till our regular meeting starts, and we're taking a break to grab a quick bite before that. So I apologize that you guys got kind of cut short. We didn't, I think you got what you wanted. Okay, all right, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
What's wrong?
Oh, I was gonna give it. meeting. We will call to order the meeting and ask for a roll call. Pam? Yeah.
Here.
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 Here. Thank you. As always, we want to thank Sarah, who is videoing our meetings back there, and they are played, I guess, intermittently for the rest of our lives on TV. And also to let you know that we are convening at Saxy's tomorrow for coffee with the mayor. And I imagine that our professional helper, Tim Gagan, may be there with me at 8 o'clock, hopefully. And maybe some other people. Sometimes the chief shows up. So having said that, our first item is the consent agenda. Are there any questions or comments or motions?
Madam Mayor, I move that the town council approve the consent agenda as published, item 3A.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thanks, guys. The next item is council comments, reports, disclosures. Council have anything? Bernie?
Well, I have a very pleasant report to give, and that is about a meeting I had last Thursday with TACA. As you may have remembered, I had considerable concerns about their financial accounting and their financial oversight, and that was a reason for the Basalt Committee, Finance Committee, to recommend termination of the agreement. But Mayor Jackie Whitsitt reached out to me and talked with me and said if I could focus more on the goal we all share, which is to have a fiscally sound and successful performing arts center at Willits, maybe we could find a way to reach a new process to move this thing forward on a still financially sound basis. So I met with the board and the general manager and the mayor and Susan, and we talked about it. And of course, we both found that we were very frustrated by that pre-development agreement. It created mutually kind of impossible expectations that couldn't be changed, and we both ended up being frustrated with each other trying to work through that agreement. So we did agree mutually to let the pre-development agreement expire naturally on September 30th. It was supposed to be a good idea and make it clear the way forward and the different responsibilities. Instead, it turned out to be a big roadblock and confusion toward working together. So we will work together, and there are various ways, including resolutions, that we can move the process forward. So the other big thing is that Ryan Honey, who's general manager, who has a lot of experience, particularly in fundraising, agreed that he would supervise all accounting and billing requests and provide an accountant-certified financial report to the city on all funds used to date. And this is how we will cure the past financial and accounting irregularities at TACA. And I am comfortable working with Mr. Honey. At first, I was a little skeptical perhaps, but I think the more meetings we've had face-to-face, the more I'm convinced that they made the right choice of Mr. Honey as the general manager to move the whole process forward, and I do feel confidence that he understands our fiscal requirements and what he needs to do. And that'll include I'm doing this for the council more because you will see a resolution next time, and I want you to, these are kind of my recommendations to the council when you see the resolution in its final form. This is the outline. So it'll include a monthly accounting of all Willits funds to a detailed budget that will be acceptable to the Basalt's CFO, Judy Tippett. Upon receipt of the CPA report, I would suggest we authorize about roughly $11,000 more commitment to TACA. We had originally made them a $130,000 commitment, and they've used about $119,000 of that. And I also looked at the long-term need for somebody like Ryan, a professional manager, to move them forward to the place where they could be ready to sign a lease with the city over a very valuable asset. And I'm recommending that we release in monthly amounts up to $100,000 overall for the budget commitment that the council did make to TCAW of another $100,000. So I'm suggesting that I am comfortable with the new approach toward their fiscal responsibility, and I think it would be a worthwhile investment. We also agreed that based on a recommendation from our municipal finance consultant, Bruce Kimmel of Ellers, that the council would use the Willits RETA funds to hire a professional arts feasibility firm from a list of several he provided. This firm will perform a due diligence on the financial feasibility of the proposed TCAW $7.7 million art center at Willits. TCAW also will be welcome to submit their own studies and information for council consideration. The arts feasibility firm will also look at the ground up for other right-sized performing arts centers, considering what, as our consultant, financial consultant, said is the untested demographics of the Mid-Valley. Hopefully, all of this moves ahead smoothly with close communication and cooperation between the town and the TCAW board, and that I would like to see by May that we might be ready to sign a lease with them for that 7.7 acre plot at Willits, which I believe was just valued at around 1.28 million, Susan? 1.2? A little higher? Well, it's over 1 point. So it's a very valuable town asset, and I think we have a fiscally sound and responsible process now in place that we can move ahead. I would say that not only will the city be much more comfortable, but the donors who Ryan told me have kind of stood back waiting from all the fallout of the findings and the discussion of the Finance Committee, that they will be very reassured that all funds will be accounted for by professional standards. And this whole process will give strong evidence of the city's commitment to making a fiscally sound performing arts center at Willits a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie, and I just want to thank Susan and Bernie, Ryan and Michael Lipkin, and all the other members from the TCAW board. It was pretty wonderful to see that cooler heads can prevail when you get people in the room sitting down and speaking civilly to each other. You can work just about anything out. So thanks, Bernie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Other council comments? Jen?
I recently met with Rob and Pete of Roots RX, and on another note, I have a short invitation to Basalt citizens, council, and staff to let's focus on collaboration so we can be a town that is able to function effectively and efficiently in dealing with routine business and, most importantly, community priorities. Basalt, let's reach our goals by keeping our small town culture character intact and recognize it's going to take us all to realize our potential. With everything we say and do, we are influencing positively and or negatively the community we care about. So the ideal is to do this with consideration and intention. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thanks. Okay, we have special guests tonight, Julie Kolar and John Fox Rubin, and they sit on the mayor's cabinet with me at my request. The mayor's cabinet is a small group of citizens who are people that are friends or acquaintances or business relationships of mine that I trust. I have tried to select them from varying sectors and age groups and everything I can to get a diverse group, and it was submitted to us by people on this council that we create a vision for the town. And so I will let Julie and John take this one.
Thank you. I'm John Fox Rubin. For the record, I live in Old Town Basalt. And we have a draft.
You might need to get Adam mic. Can you hear?
Come in, Mike.
Are you picking them up?
Or turn it towards you.
Sarah, okay.
So just the context of what we've been working on is about 2 years ago, Julie and I and Robin Waters and Kathy Click were taking a leadership class. And we started thinking about how it would pertain to our community. And a lot of the concepts were that leadership is not just our council, it's not just the staff, it's the whole community. How do we work together to lead our community forward? So we, as part of that process, started weaving together ideas of a common vision for Basalt. Robin, I'm sorry we didn't get to chat, but this is the result of that. And the best version of it came out about 1.5 years ago. And I don't know how long ago we've decided to bring it to this mayor's cabinet and kind of keep iterating on it and think, how would we roll it out? How would we get feedback? And how do we get out of the here and now, but really start thinking, where do we want to be in the future as a community with something that's not just too aspirational and too fluffy, that something that we can reflect forward and backward on. So that's the context of what we've done. And Julie's going to talk just a little bit about, well, what is a vision statement?
So it probably goes without saying, but it's really a succinct and hopefully wholeheartedly accepted statement that everyone can continually come back to. You know, when we're at odds with a particular development, say, or a particular concern or an issue, you know, if we have a statement that incorporates generally how we all feel and how good, hopefully, that we all feel about this wonderful place, we can realign ourselves and come back to it time and again. It can be a measuring stick to use particular questions by, does this new idea or project or development fit? Yes or no? Does it align with that? So that's really the basis of a vision statement, and really keeping it super succinct, as short as possible, but as inclusive of the key words and terms and ideas as possible. So we took a stab. And we're gonna make this very clear. This is a draft. It's a working document. We have zero agenda. We're just hoping to put some good love and spirit out there and get people to buy in. And the idea really is to not only bring it to you guys in this sort of formal setting, but even put it out physically into the community with, say, chalkboards at various locations, you know, where people can write and comment and really be interactive and have it be truly participatory. Because what we don't want this to be is some academic, here it is, like, this is what it's going to be. Rather, we want it to be an evolution. We want it to be something that everyone feels good about. And words are hard. You know, there's particular words that may strike something good or not so good in somebody, but we're hoping we picked a good cross-section. So I don't know if you guys have all seen it yet, but we'll read it out loud for the record. You want to start it?
Sure, we're going to break it into, it's 2 sentences. I'll read the first sentence. Basalt is an inclusive, sustainable mountain community that boasts both historic charm and progressive vision.
It is an engaging place to live, work, and play while offering an abundance of creative, professional, educational, and recreational outlets.
Thanks. Thanks, you guys. So if you didn't catch the part about hopefully, we know that staff has got a lot on their shoulders right now, but we are talking very seriously about how quickly we can get a chalkboard out there or some way to write on this, and so that the community can add their thoughts and ideas as to how this should end up. So we will see this again, I hope, very soon. And I just want to thank these two especially, because, you know, they always say if you want to get something done, ask a busy person. You cannot find two busier people than these business owners and just full-time workers with kids and not kids. But thank you, Julie and John, so much for pushing this step forward.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Does council have any questions or suggestions regarding what you're seeing so far?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Oh my God, a positive thing. Goody. Okay, the next item is citizen comments for items not on the agenda and items added to the agenda after the deadline. Yes, Mr. Chase, please step to a microphone. Or you can sit there. Or you can sit there if you prefer.
In the spirit of what Julie and John have talked about, I wanted to let you know that my first attempt at bringing the community together in a more casual atmosphere where they felt comfortable asking questions and fielding answers and so forth, which was last Thursday night at the library, that we talked basically about the financing of this piece of property. That was kind of the topic that we discussed. But it was such a terrific experience, I think, for everyone who attended. We had about 30 people, that I decided that I would do this continually. And I wanted to invite the community once again. Actually, it's going to be tomorrow night between 5 and 7. We're going to meet at the library. Nick Aceto is going to be there with us and discuss some of his more recent cityscape designs and so forth, so we might be able to just kind of verbalize what we're thinking about. And I think that would fit into Julie and John's mission statement, if you will, because frankly, what we're seeing is not a reflection of that. And so, parallel with what we're able to do here in these chambers, I'm going to conduct those meetings as long as people are interested in coming to them. We're going to take 2 hours of the library time, and we want everybody to come. We want people from both sides of the street, so to speak, to come and talk about their issues. It was suggested that some of the numbers that I had talked about with regard to this financing were inaccurate, and I'm perfectly willing to open up a portion of that meeting so that the other side of the coin can come out. Tell us what other numbers you might be working with that we're not privy to. But we're always going to be inviting people from the community, whether it's Takaw or Gina Moe from Art Base, and hopefully we get some people from Southside to get their input as you're getting, Jackie, periodically. We want them to be able to sit in a very casual atmosphere, look at the models that have been created, some of the posters that have been created, and just have an open dialogue in the community. So tomorrow night, 5 to 7, and next Thursday night, 5 to 7. So tomorrow night's Wednesday, and then the following week, Thursday, 5 to 7. Thank you.
Other comments for items not on the agenda? Okey doke, thank you. Wait a minute, you work here.
Bennett sent you the email regarding Midland Park, and he asked us to read it in the record, and because it's so long, I'm not going to read it, except that he was really looking for additional amenities in Midland Park. And I had the opportunity to talk to Bennett today, and I was able to share with him that we are now working on phase 2 of the Midland Park plan, and it has been a comment that people would like to see more benches. And Sally Cole and Charlie Cole, who were the leaders really of the Midland Park Committee a number of years ago and really got it going originally, are kind of picking up again, and they're starting phase 2. They're working with Giles Thornley from Connect One, who's actually doing this pro bono. There's an exciting Audubon Society is coming, and they're going to be kind of doing a vegetation thing at the library, and they would like other people to go. It's kind of a demonstration. They're hoping to put some of these plantings there. So, you know, I wish I knew it off the top of my head, but it's, I think it's the end of September that's happening. And we're also putting the Jason Fan installation of the story fort is going in a couple weeks too. So there's a lot happening in Midland Park.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, if there's no other public comments, Our first item is reading of ordinances. It's a public hearing and first reading of ordinance 21, an ordinance of the town approving amendments to Chapter 16 zoning of the municipal code of Basalt, amending the community serving commercial zone district, adding and revising definitions and other changes to Chapter 16 zoning in order to implement the Our Town Planning Master Plan Amendment. Susan?
Well, this is the council's first official public hearing on the CSC zone district. The council has seen the CSC zone district and the amendment at many different meetings. This is really coming out of the Our Town planning effort, where in that document, which originally came from the Downtown Advisory Committee and was incorporated into the master plan, it was asked that we look at the appropriate zoning to implement the master plan. It was even suggested at that time that we look at the CSC zone district, and the town council passed a series of resolutions trying to giving direction to the P&Z and getting feedback back from the P&Z at numerous meetings. So I think it's important just at the beginning, because this is the first public hearing, is maybe to kind of go over the initial goals that we're trying to accommodate here. And so it's really a combination. The core values that were in the doc report were bring rivers to the forefront of the town's identity, don't lose our small town charm, promote vitality and sustainability, and then there was 5 guiding principles of connecting the town to the river, preserve significant physical and visual access to the rivers, improve Lions Park, allow density to drive revitalization, and provide a there destination for residents and guests alike. That's a lot to accomplish with a zoning district, and the P&Z worked pretty hard to get you what you have in front of you today. The last time that the town council looked at this was actually in June 14th meeting, and at that meeting there was a bunch of takeaways that the town council had asked us to do, and I'm going to just highlight a couple of those, but I also wanted to maybe summarize a little bit about some of the major elements that are in the zoning district itself. And one of them is to kind of define what community serving is by having an anchor use. And so we're going to spend some time tonight talking about anchor uses. Another thing was really how to balance this idea of small town character and letting density drive development. And in this case, what the ultimate kind of decision was is that most of the buildings that are facing Two Rivers Road are 2.5 stories, and by 2.5 stories, we mean that the third story is set back 10 feet. That was also expanded to say that the third story, this third story by River Park should also be pulled back 10 feet, but there's some relief kind of built into the zoning regulations. A big part of it was addressing all 4 of the Our Town parcels. There's a map up there in the corner, so we're talking about the CDC property, the Lions Park property, Merino Park, and the Basalt Center Circle property, which included the old Clark's Market, which is now Restore, but we're trying to refer to it as the BCC property. Yeah, we're trying to. And I think that another kind of key idea that was built into the zoning was that 4 stories was going to be allowed on the BCC property, but only in the interior of the property. And we have kind of a discussion item tonight to kind of get clarity from the town council in terms of what are the decision kind of questions that are out there. At the last meeting, I kind of referenced the takeaways, and there were a couple takeaways that I just want to flag. One of them was there was concern about height. And so there was some language that is added to the zoning regulations that you have in front of you that doesn't guarantee the height limits that are kind of set out. It's something that the applicant has to demonstrate in the land use process, and that a maximum of, up to a maximum of the 4 foot of the underground parking is allowed to be counted. But the idea is that at sketch plan and preliminary plan, the applicant has to come in and show where are they measuring their first story from. And that you're going to be looking at the relationship of that first floor to the sidewalk and to the pedestrian experience, and you're going to spend time at sketch plan, and then you're going to set it actually in the final plan review. The other thing that kind of came up is the issue about the condominium hotel. And I think our staff takeaway is there were strong feelings kind of on both sides about whether a condominium hotel would or wouldn't be identified as an actual anchor use. But at the end of the day, we took that, we were leaving it at this stage of the review process, leaving it in, and we did spend a little bit more time with Don Elliott, who is our consultant, looking at the definition of a condominium hotel to make sure that it was really operating as a hotel and not as a residential unit. So what you have in front of you, I want to make sure that the council understands it's really the P&Z's version, P&Z's vision, after they got direction from the town council of what they would like to see in the zoning. And it's not necessarily, this isn't, one of the email comments kind of referred to staff's position, but I want you to understand this is really coming from the P&Z, and this is kind of the time for the council to weigh in on what they're seeing. And at the end of the day, this is a zone district that the town council has the authority to make changes in the ordinance. What I kind of have this set up, and actually, James, if you could maybe flip to the end there, maybe I'll just flip. Here's, those are kind of the questions that I had for the council after our public hearing. And one is this anchor uses and thresholds per the P&Z. Is the town council good with how the P&Z, do you have the pointer there, James? This list here is showing the anchor uses. Here's at the top are the 4 parcels. So we're talking about the CDC parcel, the BCC parcel, Lions Park and Merino Park. And kind of the key concept, I think, I won't go over in a lot of detail, is that being community serving means that you're going to have at least one of the anchor uses. So here's our anchor use table. We want to do a check-in with the town council on that. Second one is the definition. And how this works is we have an anchor use, and once you have an anchor use, you can have any of the secondary uses, and they really are the traditional kind of uses that you see in the downtown area, including affordable housing. And then the second question is the definition of a condominium hotel. Do you believe there's sufficient assurances that it's not a free market condominiums? Our third question is just the dimensional requirements overall. Are there any of them that you want to flag and talk more about? And a bigger question is question number 4, this BCC property. And you're going to hear from one of the, Tim Belinsky later, as one of the representatives of the BCC property, about how it left the Planning and Zoning Commission. And, the question really is, the proposed regulations are really set to require someone to reorganize the lot lines on the BCC property. And what the P&Z was trying to get at is they wanted to put out their vision, which was that four-story buildings should be permitted in the interior of the site, but up to the street, there should be buildings that more or less match the buildings that you see across the street at Ute Center. So the regulations are saying that you have to at least plan for or build the commercial up at the street level before you can build a four-story building back behind. Now, I'll go into that a little bit more, maybe more detail after we get some public comment. The P&Z went out on the site, did a site visit with some of the property owners out there, and they made some changes to the regulations that I actually left. This isn't the version that you have in your packet, but it's really kind of how it left, how the P&Z changed it. And basically they were going to allow 3 stories on that building behind. The same kind of rule that it was 2.5 stories with the 3rd story being set back until you had built these buildings up to the street. And they slightly raised the height. So that's going to be, I think, a pretty big discussion item here. And the last kind of more significant discussion item is kind of a new question regarding the CDC property. And that's really kind of coming out of the discussion that we had last Tuesday when we set the ballot language. Now there's no, absolute requirement, of course, that your ballot language has to really match your zoning because you don't own the property. But affordable housing units are listed in the zoning district that you have in front of you as a secondary use on all of the parcels, and particularly the CDC property. The ballot question said that it was commercial uses and public purpose buildings. And so really the question, residential was taken off. So what is the council's intent? And that's another one that I think when we get to that discussion, I'll add some more information on that one. So
That just pertains to the CDC portion.
it really just pertains to the CDC property, right? All of the, and like I said, all of the four areas allow residential use. Maybe, James, if you flip up to the blue parcel map, yeah. I'm just showing this, there's a complicated map we have if you really need us to walk through how the dimensions work in here. But this map just kind of shows the ownership on the BCC property. So you can see here, this is actually the ownership of this parcel, and the hotel owns this parcel, and this parcel. And the rest of this common area is kind of open, is owned by everyone, including all the owners that are up in here. So that's just as background when you hear from the public. And the other thing I kind of wanted to add is that we did get some comments that I'd like to enter into the record from Jerry Twilliger. The other comments that we had received were included in your packet. That's all I have for introductory comments.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. We will open the public hearing at 6:45-ish. Are there folks out there that would like to have a question or a comment regarding this CSC zone district? Yes, sir.
My name's Doug McDonald. I just would like to point out that sitting in on the last special meeting when the bond language was established, it seemed pretty clear to me that the council was expressing a clear rejection of the idea of residential on the western portion of the CDC parcel for development. And every bit of research that I could find, it clearly says that residential includes hotels and condo hotels by definition. That's from Colorado statutes. So I would hope that that would be interpreted in the same way going forward with CSC zoning. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Others?
Hello, sir.
Hi, my name's Tim Belinsky. I am here on behalf of the BCC property area to reinforce a look and a further review of the zone map that you see on the screen, and encourage council to direct staff to explore alternative approaches to the sequencing of build-out, and to further examine and look for alternative options to the dilemma that's inherently in place, as explained by Susan, where there is common ownership areas, a significant amount of common ownership areas to the map, and yet the prerequisite for anything to happen in terms of a building along the center of the BCC area would be conditioned as having the first building happen on common land, which will be tough to get sponsorship, tough to get leadership, tough to get anybody to rally around that. So there's an inherent complication that we need to work out, and it's fairly fatal in terms of the ability to do further build out and to deliver what the owners of the BCC property hope to explore further, and that is to bring along a grocery store to the downtown area. The work done by P&Z and town staff was, as you all know, very extensive. We want to make sure we're applauding their efforts, but also want to make sure that what we end up with here is something that can be acted upon, and not something that just forever cannot promote action, if that's in fact the goal, which it seems like it is and was expressed that way to us when we got involved in this P&Z effort. I would like to point out that the capacity of this area of downtown is fairly significant. It could accommodate uses that could really relieve the pressure on development in other parts of the downtown area or on the park that could more appropriately be put into this zone area. So that's where we are for now. I'd again just appreciate that council provides direction to Susan and her crew so that we can explore this in more depth over the course of the next 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and go to council for their comments. Gary?
Well, I've been reading through this entire zoning district thing, and it's been, it comes to me is that I'm looking at the Basalt Center parcel. Really, I think all along I've been very clear that I feel that this is the appropriate place for density and development. So I do agree with Tim and really do want to facilitate the development of that, redevelopment of that parcel. And I do know that, you see letters from all the different owners, and they don't jointly write a letter, it's because they don't jointly get along. And so you have this fun little area here where if somebody can pull this together, we put the proper zoning onto that property, that's really all along. It's like we've been talking about Pan and Fork forever. We're talking about an acre there. Here, it's well over an acre, and it's just, I think, I have not heard from anybody that I know that said, yeah, redevelop that piece. So I would love to find a way to take out any barriers from making that happen. So for me, that would be something that I am pretty, serious about. And, could potentially, I'll talk about the other piece in a second, but to me, I won't vote for this until we can figure that piece out. So, and then on the other piece, I think I've said it all along. I think we were very clear that residential, I cannot see residential on the CDC parcel. I just don't, I don't think that's the appropriate place. This is the very appropriate place to put residential and everything else. I've always been, you know, kind of really, really concerned about the condo hotel piece, and I think I've been pretty consistent that condo hotels scare me because they turn into condos over time, and putting people there, except for if we're gonna do that type of stuff, we gotta put affordable housing there before we put anybody actually living there, you know, because we say it a million times, we removed low-income people from the downtown area, and I do not wanna find a way to put high-income people on that parcel. So I really believe that that parcel is a community serving parcel. I'm happy with a lot of the uses. I was very comfortable with having a hotel or a condo hotel with much bigger restrictions, which I think you've gotten to as a secondary use. I'm happy with that, because a secondary use to me means it's a much smaller boutique hotel than the entire thing being the boutique hotel. I have a question about why the Roaring Fork development parcel with 1 acre development has to have an anchor. I don't really understand that. This is a big parcel. I can understand the anchor idea on that. So if you can explain that to me, you don't have to do it now, but I just don't understand the anchor. I want to look at ways also to let that 1 acre get developed. So I don't want to have to get into this conversation about what's an anchor and what's not an anchor. I'd rather just be like saying, these are the allowed uses on this property and there. And so, and I will be okay with, you know, a condo hotel, but it's not the main use of that parcel.
Jen?
I am 105% aligned with Gary, and one of my questions or comments regarding the anchor use table is it's after working with it and sitting with it for what seems it's probably 3-4 months now, is it's feeling limiting, and that's what Don Elliott suggested from the get-go is don't limit yourself. And I recognize that it's easy to look at, and I am in agreement with the majority, except for residential. And I just wondering if there's another way to look at the anchor use table or define what are acceptable uses on each of the parcels. And within that, there has been, not saying that I support or do not support, but for example, on the CDC parcel west, the art base has mentioned the possibility of expanding over an interest in that area. That's not listed on here. And so what kind of litigious ramifications does that bring up as well with looking at affordable housing and residential on the CDC parcel west, and not wanting to leave ourselves open and vulnerable to that?
I can only be 100% in agreement with somebody. I just can't go that extra 5%, because then I wouldn't be in agreement. But anyhow, I agree with Gary that when I voted for no residential on the CDC parcel, that's exactly what I meant. I do have concern about how you keep a condominium development, a condo hotel, when it might be in the face of a strong economic headwind, and the owners come to you, or the unified maintainer of it. I guess I would have to see some example, some actual practical working example of a condo hotel that isn't halfway already on its way to becoming individual condominium units for me to be 100%. So I would need some more background and research. I kind of also agree, I forget it was Gary or Jen, that maybe this anchor use really isn't so necessary in the CDC West, that we could, you know, the condo hotel could be a secondary use, which I believe is what I suggested at one of our council meetings I think it was the retreat, long time ago. I'd be willing to look at that. I just need more information to get comfortable with it. I would like a hotel. Mark mentioned way back when, a 35,000 square foot fisherman's lodge. And the more I think about it, the more I like it, Mark. You know, it says a lot about who we are and what we do. You do not have to be a fisherman to check into that lodge. I just have to make that clear. As far as the BCC part, I would also agree with Gary that I really need more information and specific printed material to compare what Tim is proposing versus what the P&Z, and hear a better rationale from each side before I could make, I'm open to considering that possibility that you raised. So, but I would need more information and some graphics to let me look at it.
I definitely agree with Tim on the BCC parcel. I don't think we need to do if we've got an applicant come in to build a nice grocery store right in the middle, I wouldn't turn them down until the buildings on Two Rivers Road got built. That's kind of silly in my opinion. The CDC parcel I don't think's big enough to do a hotel as a secondary use. I'm going to still maintain a 30-room fishing lodge. Would help the town immensely as far as the fishing industry. It would help RMI. It would help the River Conservancy, for when those people come from far away to visit, they've got a nice place to stay that's close. People forget that we've got a hotel already on the Frying Pan River there, and I think we need to be sensitive to the Aspinall property, because they've never gone into a condo, you know, even though there has been economic downturns. You know, that's just as valuable a piece, in my opinion, as the piece on the Roaring Fork. So we definitely need to, I don't know if you zone out some area on there for some open space or what for the future, but I know we've got pre-existing uses there now. As far as the rest of the anchor use tables, I don't have a problem. I agreed with Jen. I think maybe the Arts Center should be included in the CDC partial west. And as far as the building parameters, I'm good with, that's pretty standard for the valley. I guess that's pretty much all I had.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, listening to my colleagues, I'll change it a little bit and say I don't need that to be a secondary use. I think, like Gary, we could eliminate the requirement of an anchor on the CDC parcel, and I would be comfortable with the build-out standards P&Z has proposed, and see if there was, and I would be comfortable adding an arts center on the CDC West, but we would have to look at the economics of that, you know, that, how does the town get reimbursed for that land if it's a nonprofit, and, but I would be open to looking at it.
Do you have a question, Susan?
As you haven't spoken, and then,
I know, and also Jen wanted to speak again.
yeah, why don't you guys all speak, and then we'll try to work through.
Okay, sounds good.
The anchor thing, I wanna spend some time on that, so.
Jennifer Riffle.
Well, if we're gonna go back to anchor thing, I'm just saying, if we're moving the dots around, I just assume, let's put town hall on BCC parcel as well. It's a huge parcel. If there's interest, if there's the ability for a community center, then we can slide town hall in there too. Right.
All right, I don't have a lot to say about most of this. I think a lot of it works. I think P&Z did a really, really good job of thinking this through. I guess my thought is that I don't want to inhibit something good from coming in
because we have anchor uses on any of these. If somebody comes in and wants to do that, not that, I'm a little concerned that they wouldn't be able to. Also, I'm not horribly concerned with the CSC zoning because, tell me if I'm wrong, Susan, but especially the CDC parcel is already zoned C2. The CSC zoning, I understand, is overlay. You can take it or not take it. You could bring a PUD in on these parcels, and that would be a doable thing. So I can't get too married or emotional about the CSC zoning, except for I'm not sure that I agree with the anchor use is necessary. I don't think it's necessary, and I particularly would not want to see an anchor use at all on the CDC parcel. I will say again, I think we made it pretty clear we don't want residential on that parcel, and I think I've seen just a little bit enough to be nervous about the fact that anything that has something that looks like a kitchen or anything like that is residential, and if I need to know, is a hotel or a hotel condo residential? Because we spoke pretty clearly in our ballot language, which means to me that we tend to be in agreement that we don't want residential there. So I guess it needs to be looked at further. And on the BCC parcel, I strongly agree that we do not want to limit the ability of anybody to come in there and redevelop some of that parcel. We've been sitting here on council for 20 years looking at that parcel saying that is the elephant in the room that needs to be redeveloped. And I think it's going to be not any time in the near future where all the owners over there and the HOA are going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya and agree that they're all going to redevelop the way that this zoning would like them to. So I don't want to stop a grocery store from happening. I don't want to stop housing from happening. These are things that belong on that parcel. You know, I have made plenty of noise about where I don't believe it does belong. I think it does belong on that parcel, and I don't want to be a boulder in the road to stopping the kind of development we want there. Okay, Susan.
Okay, so I'm gonna do the easy ones first. Number 4, we're gonna come back with some language on the BCC property for you to consider at the second reading. Which would allow, and the difference is not that you couldn't build a grocery store, Mark, is that you couldn't do 4 stories and you couldn't go up to 48 feet in height. 45 feet in height, you can't build a height. The difference is until you had the buildings out front, you could only go 2.5 stories. So I'm gonna change it, but just so you know, I'll bring language back to that. In terms of, let's just talk about housing. And the reason I want to bring it up is I understand you guys don't want housing on the CDC property. That was clear from the discussion last week. But one thing that we didn't talk about last week is that if, for example, if you do take ownership or another developer, you don't take ownership, either way, that means that doesn't mean that the person has to build their affordable housing off-site. So even, for example, on that 55,000 square foot development that you have behind you, which, you know, had the hotel and the 15,000 square feet of office, that had a couple, 1 or 2 units associated with the hotel that were affordable housing units. So one question is, do you want any of the affordable housing that's associated with the commercial development to be permitted on this area?
Every large hotel in Snowmass has at least 2 or 3 affordable units in the hotel. I don't know if that helps. I'm sure Aspen is similar, but I just thought I'd bring that up.
Yeah, Tom.
Well, yeah, I don't, not to speak to the policy side of it, but from a practical standpoint, as Susan says, it means you're telling them if they're gonna provide housing as opposed to an impact fee, they're gonna have to buy land off-site, which is maybe cost prohibitive.
So are you guys okay with affordable housing for that development itself, not additional affordable housing? Is that kind of what I would read?
If we take ownership, because we passed this ballot measure, it says no residential, and our bond council sat right here in our face, 10 feet away from us, and said, do not go outside the boundaries of your ballot question, because you will be subject to liability.
So I did talk to Paul today, because I wanted to kind of walk it through with Paul. And the language, the language says commercial and public purpose buildings. So, he thought that, yes, you could have affordable housing that was part of the development. That would probably be an easy, call to make, and no one would probably take you to court, because in the end, it would be a judge that would decide. It would be a little harder if you were gonna do like a freestanding affordable housing building and call it public purpose. You might not wanna go to that extent, because you could take it all the way through and then you could have a judge throw it out. So I guess I myself, I would, in the permitted uses, put affordable housing for that development as a permitted secondary use, but, it's really up to you guys.
Bernie?
Yeah, well, I wasn't thinking of that when I said no affordable housing. What I was thinking is I did not want any freestanding affordable housing, and that one would think a developer would not either, given the cost of the land. But if you're building a substantial structure, throwing in a few, smallish condo units for your manager and key help, that might work quite well. So I would not have any objection to meeting at least a portion of the affordable housing requirements of the development there on site, but nothing, you can't really add to it. Some kind of percentage or some reasonable limit, to make it clear.
So, to me, this is, one of those things where this is different from zoning than from actually approving an application. And in the zoning, I would want to make it absolutely clear that this is to meet the affordable housing mitigations of any commercial business. And so that to me could fly in here, but the reality is I worry about us trying to find ways to tweak this in any way, shape, or form into becoming, either an affordable, even though I deal with affordable housing a lot better than, residential, but I still don't want to get into it, but I don't want this to be a complete deal killer either, because it's going to be interesting if, we get this thing passed. I want to see, this park developed as quick as possible, and, the reality is let's see what we can put on that parcel, that other parcel. And also, the Claire, I think you're clear that that the art base is allowed. Did you make clear that we were gonna probably get rid of anchor use on?
Yeah, I'm gonna do anchor use next, so I'm sticking with the affordable element right now, so.
Got Bernie weighing in, I got Gary weighing in, Mark.
I'm good with affordable.
How's
Couple, 3 units.
I think it should be equivalent to the parking spaces that are required for management, which is 2.
What was that?
What I recall from here is that there's 2 parking spaces required for, do you know what it is, Susan? I don't
Yeah,
have it
but I was just gonna point out to you, Jen, that we may not have a hotel, and it could be, you could have the art base, and you could have, I don't know, artist housing or something to meet the development review requirements of the art base. It might not necessarily be the hotel, so you might not want to be that specific, but it might not be a hotel. Right?
Well,
That's what I struggle with, and that's where it really makes sense in the lodging industry, and that is a standard which Mark mentioned, that management has housing on site. in the case of an art center, it is not necessary to have management on site.
Yeah,
I feel that maybe it should, not maybe, the requirement should be for management purposes. Otherwise, we're turning the CDC parcel west into affordable housing. And it needs to
Well,
be,
then we should have just done that when we removed the trailers.
right, yeah. And not, yeah.
I'm not kidding.
I know.
I'm not trying to be funny.
No. Well, my thought is still, I believe that I don't wanna muddy the waters, I don't want residential on that parcel, they can do fees in lieu, they can do off-site housing, there's a million ways we can help, we've got free parcels, we could help people do off-site housing. I don't wanna make this convoluted and hard to interpret down the road myself, so, okay, what else?
Well, I think I have a mixed bag, so I'll bring back language at the second reading, you guys can look at it, how's that? Let's talk about anchor uses. Is everybody okay adding the art base as, just pretend like we're having anchors for a second, okay? Is everybody okay with adding the art center as an anchor use on CDC parcel west?
No, I don't want any anchors.
Well, let's just pretend.
Add it as a use.
Just a use, add it as a use.
It's a permitted use already. It's a permitted use already
Why
on
don't
the
you
program.
immerse in the anchor?
Well, you guys are really throwing me here, so I don't know that I'm 100% prepared to talk about this, because this was a fundamental piece of what we were defining community serving to be, is it was gonna have something that you wanted. It was gonna have something that was adding to your vitality, something that was a need in the town, and that's why your anchor uses were either like that you wanted a grocery store, and that you wanted a civic center, like on the CDC property, for example, we have this community center that is an anchor use.
Well,
And a
Susan, why
hotel,
don't we
and
do
at the
this?
time-
Why don't we do this? If you're thinking we're talking all 4 parcels, why don't we just do CDC parcel first in anchor uses and the rest of them separately?
So let's pretend we're good with anchors, okay? That you have them. So art center, I got 1 yes and 1 no for an anchor use on the CDC West.
Okay, I'm weighing in. I don't think we should anchor uses on the CDC parcel. I think we should only have secondary uses or uses. And I thought that's what Gary was saying.
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying a little bit, is what do you want to meet the definition? This is a pretty big change, because the definition of what someone is someone, to be community serving, to be an eligible applicant, you are building an anchor use. So if you don't want a community serving use, it's kind of like, what do you want to be a community serving use on the CDC property? You might as well almost just take it out and say, we're not going to include the CDC property in this zone district.
Not a bad idea.
But I kind of like the idea, I guess I would make the pitch for keeping the anchor use concept, and then you reviewing what you would like to see on the CDC property.
There's more options.
Yeah.
So that's what my question was, Susan. I recognize that we are throwing you like right here into the pan without preparing for this.
But I do have one other thing to add. Well, I don't know if this is gonna confuse you more or not. Why don't you finish your statement?
Is it possible to not include the CDC parcel west into the anchor use table, or is that just a really not great idea?
You know, it's such a fundamental piece, and it's such a fundamental piece of what kind of came out of the P&Z.
That's where this came from.
Do you have a legal opinion?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a legal issue, but the CSC zone district was initiated by the owner of that property. It was the focus of the district when it came about, so I don't know if this is a.
Well, somebody mentioned, and something that I hadn't really thought of, which is, do we need to have the CDC parcel in
this CSC zoning?
You know, I guess one of the.
Let me ask council this question. Do you need to have CSC?
I
Yeah,
want to go
Jen.
back to our town planning survey. Question number 4 was, which of the following would you like to see on the developable portion of the Pan and Fork property? 36% said restaurant, 29% said hotel, 27% active park, no buildings, and both at 22% was more retail, small stores, and performing arts. Followed by 20% passive park, no buildings. So I'm gonna stop there at the higher, more than 20%, 20% or greater. And for us to not however convenient, and I do want to argue in my gut, to not have the CDC parcel west on the anchor use table, it doesn't seem to go along with the direction that the community has been going in for quite some period of time. That said, there's also an argument for, as time passes, we are educated and it shakes out a little bit differently. And with that argument, looking at this with fresh eyes, I would say, then why isn't park open space if 27% of the people said that as an anchor use? Not going one way or the other, but this is where we need to, I want to direct us to somewhat structure. As best we can.
Well, I think it would be helpful to maybe talk about what you want to see on the CDC property, what it is that you would like to see on the property, and then we can come back and give you different thresholds for the CDC property. But I guess what I'm a little bit struggling with is I don't know the answer to, because this is the first time I'm hearing it, let's get rid of the anchor use, because like right now, I'm going back to the definition of what community serving was that you were going to build an anchor use. So if you're not gonna do a anchor use, you kinda have to change it a little bit.
Let me try to clarify. It's not, what I think is really the biggest problem for many of us is, you know, when Mark was talking about his fishing lodge, that's a hotel. These are hotels. When you throw in condominium hotel, you throw in, you know, a totally different type of lodging that is the one piece that scares people the most, is because it turns into a condo. And, you know, I totally agree with Bernie on that one. I'd love to see, because all I've seen in Aspen is a lot of condo hotels turn into condos. And so, you know, people live in them more than 29 days a year, because all they had to do was come in and ask for it. So if there was a way, I'm like, I don't want to throw this whole out, because I think we've worked on a lot of this. I think, honestly, we're okay with a lot of these uses on this property. It's the condominium hotel piece that is the sticking point. And I think in second reading, you would need to come up and see if we have the full council or whatever council's here at that time, to see if people are still okay with having a hotel first, because that was the question that was asked to the citizens, not condo hotel. And that's a big difference in when you really look at it. So to me, I heard a big argument from Katie and Jen last time about a hotel there. And yes, the community survey, even though no community survey is perfect, hotel was one of those uses. I could get behind that and, you know, look at this whole thing in a different light, and not try to throw out the anchor use, not try to rock the boat and get a ton of people in here screaming and all this stuff again. So, but I think this condo hotel piece is the piece that's the big sticking point.
Yes.
Well, to state the obvious, you can take the hotel, condominium hotel out of that matrix and preserve the anchor use concept for this parcel.
Just hotel, no condominium.
And not as an anchor use.
Well, I think we put the hotel and the condo hotel, we could put them as different categories, and under the CDC, it's hotel, not a condo hotel. The question is, I guess the one question is, would you allow a condo hotel on the BCC property, or you just wanna get rid of condo hotel?
we're not
No, we're
talking
just
about the
talking
BS,
about the
we're talking about
We're just
CDC.
talking
Okay.
CDC.
So we'll make a separate line item for hotel and put hotel under the CDC property and the condo.
As a secondary.
Well, the thing is, I looked at that, and if you say secondary, there's just no way. You might as well just take it out, because there's no way
You can do
you can do it as a secondary use. There's no way there's something else that could be the main use. It's like, we're fooling ourselves if we're saying it's a secondary use, because there's no, it's basically just say no hotels then. Don't say hotels or condo hotels, because it won't be economically feasible to make it as a secondary use.
Why?
Well, because
It's
you would.
just mean it's not forced to be.
I'd like to argue that with being the Marble Distillery in Carbondale. It's a distillery and it's a hotel all in one, and they could have turned it into a distillery slash condo.
But that's, if you don't consider that as an anchor use, that's all you're gonna get on it. And so, if we're comfortable with that, I can live with that. But-
Well, I guess my memory is that we informally chatted at a retreat, all 7 of us, and said none of us wanted a hotel as an anchor use on that property. And that was an agreement we took 4 hours to reach. So, sounds like we're kind of starting over on that.
No,
Okay.
I don't think we're starting over on that. I think those are the 2 questions we ask at second reading. And so let's split the hotel and condo hotel, and, we can, that could be this, at the second reading, we make that final determination, is it an anchor use or a secondary use?
Okay.
So, clarify me why you said if it's a secondary use, it just won't be
I
able
don't
to
get that
happen.
Well,
either, at all.
What I was looking at was,
Not enough room.
but,
Doesn't make any difference with the
that's true.
Sorry.
Sorry. I mean, honestly, to me, I really was thinking of more of, if you're gonna have a hotel on that at all, you have to say it, but as secondary use, I can see how it can work. And so, it's fine.
And what would be the anchor then if the hotel is a secondary use?
Could be a restaurant,
It could
Could
be
be
the
brew
brew pub
pub
distillery.
distillery.
We could have a Marble Distillery, we could have a
That's
Basalt
right.
Distillery
Yeah.
and Lodge.
Don't worry, Tom.
Okay, Mark's turn.
Well, in the building code, an anchor use in a mall is a Kmart or a Walmart. It's the big part of the complex, so you guys can't put in a coffee shop and then have the hotel be the secondary use.
Right.
That just doesn't
That's
make
what I was-
sense.
Specify how big it has to be.
Just saying, that's.
Yes, Tom.
Just based on my own observations, to reinforce what Jennifer said, I've seen the same thing where you have a big restaurant downstairs and 4 or 5 hotel units upstairs. If you also think about, although it's on an entirely different scale, Union Station in Denver has, all kinds of commercial uses on the main floor, and there's the Crawford Hotel upstairs, which is a small boutique hotel. So you can have hotel as a secondary use. Obviously, the economics drive it, but I have seen it
I
done.
mean, anchor just, in this case, just means required. I mean, it means it's required to have one of these, so, do you have more for us, because we probably should move on?
I think I have everything that I need.
All right,
But we do need a motion to approve on first reading and set the second reading for
September 27.
September 27th.
With amendments?
With the idea that we're bringing back changes on these items that you identified.
Mayor, I move that the town council approve ordinance 21, series of 2016 on first reading and continue and set the public hearing and second reading for September 27th.
Second.
Further discussion? Yeah, Gary.
One question, I mean, I was just, starting to look at this, and I think, the 70% actually, I make my argument moot, so I'm going back on what I said.
Why don't we?
No,
what-
that's only on the one parcel. That's only on the Marino parcel.
Oh.
Yeah, no, that's fine,
All right.
I got it.
We got a motion and a second and discussion.
I have a discussion item. Can you please explain to me why it is that when we do first reading, that it goes directly to the next council meeting for second reading. That's just the way that it is, or sometimes it's nice to have some time in between to think things over. I'm just trying to, in my time of being a counselor, this is something that I'm noticing.
Usually for the applicant.
But you could do it differently.
Yeah, the
You
only
can
reason
set the
I
second
had the
reading for
20.
any date.
Okay, Susan's talking.
Well, the only reason I don't know if Don Elliott is available on October 11th. He wasn't available tonight. I know he's available on the 27th. We could continue to the 27th, and if he could join us by phone, I don't know that there's any if the council thinks we need more time, we could, to make it on the October 11th. The only problem with the October 11th is that we were thinking that we might have like a 3-hour or more budget discussion on the 11th of October. So we may want to just continue to the 27th, and then if something else.
Thank you for discussing and educating me, and I just wanted to understand that.
So it doesn't have to be that way.
Yes.
Any more discussion?
And additionally, you could continue it on the 27th if you're not ready to decide.
True dat.
And push it further.
Thank you.
Any more? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Whew. Thanks, Susan. Next item is public hearing and first reading of ordinance 24, an ordinance of the town approving amendments to portions of chapter 16 zoning of the municipal code, primarily concerning marijuana stores. Susan.
I'm just going to start this and then turn it over to James. The reason that we have changes in front of us is the result of a council discussion and approval of Resolution 27 on July 12th. And that resolution asked us to do two things. It asked us to change how we deal with the number of medical marijuana centers and retail stores. Currently, the code allows you to have 2 medical marijuana centers and 2 retail stores. The council asked us to change that so it would be a total of 4 of whatever combination. And then the other issue had to do with amending the zoning code to allow marijuana in more zoning districts than the current regulations. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to James, and James is going to explain a little bit more the reasoning behind the council's discussion originally, and kind of walk you through the results of the buffer maps that we prepared.
Hello. What I'm going to address is P&Z had some questions about the why for this amendment and why it was proposed. And in answering those questions, staff pointed the P&Z to Mike Scanlon's memo that's attached in your packet from June 24th. And specifically, there are kind of 3 paragraphs or so in Mike's memo on the second page, if you want to take a look at that. And it basically describes that the current zoning and buffers are rigid and makes it difficult to find a location in Basalt to locate such a store. And the amendments have been made over time, but they haven't really produced any additional facilities. So that's kind of the why, and that's why the council adopted the reso directing staff to bring back the amendments. The P&Z also asked staff and recommended that we do some mapping of the buffers, the way that they were identified in the last amendment that we did to the marijuana regulations. And if you remember, the marijuana buffers were amended to change from a flight of direct line to a direct pedestrian access. And it made it more difficult to map than the prior regulations. Staff worked on it in the C2 kind of downtown area. And so each of the red lines on the map that you see are direct pedestrian access for 1,000 feet from the school properties. And, there are a whole bunch of them. And so anywhere that you see the red lines are properties that are within that 1,000-foot buffer from the schools. And then you've got buffers from the parks that are 500 feet in the current regulations. And so that's shown in green. And you have the 500 foot from Lions Park there. And anything that you see adjacent to the green lines are within the 500 foot buffer from Lions Park. And then the purple lines going along Two Rivers Road are considered a school route in the current language, and so you're not allowed to have it adjacent to the school route. So effectively, you know, when you look at that buffer map, it doesn't really significantly increase the area. So if council is interested in increasing the area, you could look at changes to potentially the park buffer. What Eagle County has done is they had a 200 foot park buffer. The current Basalt one is 500 feet. But we just kind of wanted to point that out. Options are you could adjust the park buffer down if you wanted to increase the area. If you didn't want to increase the area, you could keep the buffers the same as we have them in the current ordinance. A third option is you could simply change the buffer for parks to require that you would prohibit marijuana surrounding the parks directly adjacent to it or across the street. That's something you could look at as well.
James, what was the 1,000 feet that you said somewhere in there?
The 1,000 feet is from schools. It's the
from
red
schools.
lines.
Yeah, Carrie.
That's currently
So
in
the
there.
question I have is, I'm not understanding the map, because what is where would you be allowed to use this? I mean, if you,
The little yellow area is what it would open up with the changes to allow for C2. Otherwise, the rest of the area there is encumbered by either the school buffer or the park buffer.
So the yellow area is now?
The yellow area is if you approve the ordinance as it is, to allow for it in C2, but keep the buffers as they exist.
What about Willets?
Willets, we have that as well.
Did you say the red area was?
The red area is the school, 1,000 foot from the school, so it wouldn't be able to have marijuana. So that's Willets. This is the 500 foot buffer in green from Triangle Park. Willets is in a PUD, so you'd have to amend the uses that are specified in the PUD anyway.
do they have to come in and ask for that?
They would, yes.
What's underneath that yellow?
Yellow basically says,
The yellow was physically there?
Yeah.
The new affordable housing units that are being built, here's the hotel that's there. And the medical center building, that long one where, Valley View Hospital is in the second floor.
actually, no. The Valley View building is right here.
Question.
Yeah.
How many, so we only have one marijuana facility in Basalt, correct? And there's other places to, there's other places to put them, correct?
Yeah, and referring to the maps,
James, you want your pointer back? It might be easier for you.
okay. So currently, the way the regulations exist, you have the industrial zone district and locations in the industrial zone district where they're permitted, which is basically BBC West area, and then you've got the BBC East area over here. There are some sites in those areas, though, that have specific uses that are allowed on specific sites, so you'd have to amend the PUD. And then also, Basalt Industrial Park, which is zoned industrial as well. This is the Willits Lane area, and this is Park Avenue. And there aren't really any buffers in that area and specific uses on parcels. So that area is currently allowed.
What about downtown?
Downtown, currently it's not allowed in the C2 zone district. The proposed ordinances would allow it in C2. But as I showed you on the map, the buffers take up a big piece of that out.
So yeah, going back to that map, there's only one little part.
PCC. That's by asking the medical, the chiropractic place,
That's for
where
medical
the
center.
Little Bird Arts Center, Aspen Medical Care,
Yes, correct.
the salon. Yeah, there's
Is that current or would be if we,
With the proposed ordinances, that's what it would yield.
Does this be driven by a particular entity, or why are we looking at this?
I'd like to answer that. So it states in our packet that David Schoenberger attended an August 16th planning and zoning meeting and stated that offered to provide some clarity on the need for the code amendments. He said that he had one of the first marijuana licenses and helped author the ordinances, and there are many challenges in Basalt that make establishing a marijuana business difficult. Right now, there is a big real estate deal brewing that involves a Basalt parcel, and these code amendments would help make it a reality. In addition to zoning, there are PUD regulations and individual property owners with their own ideas that are limiting the establishment of more retail marijuana businesses.
Does that,
Add anything to that, James?
well, I was gonna say,
That was David's description at the P&Z level.
so if this ordinance was passed, is that gonna benefit his deal, or?
It would not.
Okay, so where are we on this, James?
So council could discuss the options for changing the buffer. You could keep the language as is in the proposed ordinance, and you would open up that area.
Let me just sort of recap what I'm understanding, based on the fact that I didn't understand any of these boundary lines or the maps. But still, am I right to say that there's nothing really available for a new facility downtown, but there's a ton, okay, just that, I thought that was if we passed it.
That's if
Oh, if we
pass
pass it, yeah.
Right
That's
now,
if you pass the
there's
ord.
nothing in C2.
Right now,
But-
C2 is not allowed.
There's some availability out by the industrial park and in Willits,
No.
not in Willits, just in the industrial park area.
Yes.
So basically, that's it, there's quite, I mean, I know there's a lot of real estate out there that isn't near any of anything. So, okay, so that's where we stand right now.
The industrial park would be in play, except there are specific uses on certain parcels that
But
you
they
may
could
have to
be
amend
changed easily with an amendment.
with a PUD amendment.
Right, so, okay, so that's where we are, and what's being asked for is a change to allow C2.
C2 and
C3.
C3.
Okay.
And where do we see is that a C2 right there?
That's C2.
So where's the other ones?
What's C3?
C3. This area is C3 PUD. This is Emma Road, going back down to the cul-de-sac down here. This is Stubbies and Subway. That's C3 PUD. This area here is C3 to about here, but it's on the school route, so it's not in play.
And Willis is C3 PUD.
Well, it's a C3 PUD, so you have to amend the PUD to have those uses.
Okay, so that's, all right, do you guys, would you like to hear the public hearing before? Okay. All right, this is a public hearing. We'll open the public hearing at 7:40. People in the room that would like to ask questions or input? Yes, ma'am. Just could you come to the microphone because we record and we can't pick you up otherwise. How are you?
I'm good. Is the down?
Could you just state your name?
My name is Stephanie Scavullo. I live at 215 East Homestead Drive. I've been there for 40 years. I am concerned about having Midland Avenue open to marijuana shops. And my concerns are that Basalt's a unique place. There's a lot of children and families that go up and down town. And I don't think it's necessary there. I don't mind the marijuana shops. I don't, it seems like there's enough in the industrial park, for other shops to be open. But I don't think they have good storefronts. They're not fancy. They're kind of blocked, and you can't really see into them. And I think it's detrimental to the downtown part of Basalt. I think Basalt's unique, and we should keep it that way. I find pot on the streets in Aspen occasionally, a container here and there, and I think it's all too close to the schools, and there's too much family participation and gives the wrong message to about our town. So that's, I don't mind it going in industrial park. I don't mind it being in the South Side Industrial Park, but as far as being on Main Street, I would think it would detract from the attractiveness of Basalt and the values of people of Basalt. So,
Thanks,
that's it.
Stephanie. Others? Yes, sir.
My name is Rob Holmes. I live in Aspen, Colorado. I'm also a owner of Roots RX, along with Pete Tram, which we have 6 stores in the state and 1 cultivation that's active. Just wanted to go over a couple things. One, it's difficult to find a location anywhere in this business because you have to find someone who doesn't have a mortgage on against their real estate, which is few and far between. So that takes out a lot of people right there because federal banks won't allow people with a mortgage, to have a pot shop in their building or any place where anyone has a mortgage. The other thing that makes it difficult are HOAs and zoning, and we looked for 9 months in Aspen. I've lived there for 17 years. I know every real estate broker in town, and it was really hard to find a place. But eventually we found one. Same thing in Edwards. We looked for the better part of a year until we found a location because of all the restrictions. And I know that Basalt put a lot of time and energy into thinking about where these restrictions came from, putting these restrictions in place. And I'm just curious as to why all of a sudden, we're changing it. I do believe that there are other places. We found several locations and picked 165 South Side from other locations that we could have put our store. I'm pretty sure that there are other stores available. I think I was trying to figure out what was driving this. I had 3 calls into the previous town manager and never received a call back. Pete did the same thing. We stopped by, we tried to have meetings to try to find out what was behind it. I heard about a waiting list. Per state, you can't even put an application unless you have possession of a property. So I would argue that there is no waiting list because nobody has had a complete application. If they wanted to, they could probably find a place. My guess is they have chosen not to put one in Basalt. And if you look at Denver as a population, there's 240 stores, or approximately 1 store for every 13 to 15,000 people. Boulder has 17,600 people per store. They only have 17 stores in the Boulder area. Basalt has 3,800 people. If you allow 2 stores or 4 stores, I'm not saying don't allow. You have two and you can have 2 medical. Leave it at that and see how things go. Why would we go from 2 to 4? This is a business that shows it needs regulation. It's a brand new business. I know I keep hearing let's make it like alcohol. It's not. It's illegal across the globe. It's illegal across our country. It's only legal, recreational in 3 states. It's only been legal for a year and 8 months. This is a brand new business that is still a controlled one substance. And one of the reasons that I got into this business was because there were a lot of regulations. There is an entire division called the Marijuana Enforcement Division, which is all ex-police officers that are, in this business to enforce, the rules. But they need your participation locally to make sure that we're keeping this in the right places, out of children's hands, and, and governed. It needs to be governed, and there are businesses that don't. Shoe stores, I would argue, are probably one of them that aren't. But when it comes to, this industry, it's not like if you don't sell your product, you're going to bring it back to your distributor. Where is it going to go? And is there enough of a demand and enough of a population to take it? So I would argue that, we should study this, Look at the numbers. Look at the sales tax numbers of Aspen and what the populations are. Look at the different, communities and whether or not these stores are succeeding or failing. I guarantee you there is going to be a lot of failure. If you allow 4 stores, it is my prediction that you will have 4 failing stores in Basalt, and you will have not enriched your community. You will have businesses that are going out of business. So govern it. Figure out what the right number is. There's a lot of statistics out there to be able to figure, to be able to have a good understanding. And when you look at marijuana versus alcohol, it's very easy to forget because we see it all around and think like it's okay. But, like everyone's accepting of it. Everyone is not, and if you look at alcohol, 1/3 of the states control the pricing and distribution. If you're going to buy alcohol in the state of New Hampshire, you're going to the state store. This is a luxury that we have in the state of Colorado, and it's one that we should protect. So I ask you to really look into this and take your time and not just kind of whisk this through because it looks like it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Others? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Marge MacDonald, and I'll make this very brief. I agree with both of the 2 previous speakers. I think it's inappropriate to have such a shop in our tiny little downtown, which we're trying to revitalize, and we're looking for a lot of amenities and so on. I don't think that's an appropriate one for our downtown. And secondly, we're a very, very small valley. There are zillions of shops, it feels like, in the other communities around us. We have one here. I agree. I don't see a huge demand. Or are we limiting people from purchasing? If they so desire, that's great, but I just don't think it's necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Norm Clayson. I happen to own the building that this proposed store is looking at. I think this has been certainly not rushed. It's been going on since I think right around February that this began to talk about this. It's very interesting. I'm not a marijuana user, never have been. But when this first came in front of me, I started looking into it. And I started reading about it. And certainly we all know it's legal, so we'll get over that. But I found that marijuana is not quite the perception that I thought it was. And maybe some of you might have the same feeling. The medical properties of marijuana are extraordinary. Recreational use of marijuana is going to happen, whether it's here in Basalt or comes from Aspen. And as I looked into it, I started reading things that sort of contradict some of the things that I'm hearing right here. There's no question that alcohol and alcoholism is one of the great problems that we all in our community have seen people who are either suffering from it themselves or know of people that are. It's a very dangerous drug. And as a matter of fact, unless I'm completely wrong, I don't think that there has been a death caused by marijuana in our valley, but I can certainly tell you there have been tons of deaths that have come from people driving on our highways that are intoxicated. As a result of that, I began to change my mind and think about this. And it's really interesting. The man that came forth is an 80-year-old man whose wife was given 30 days to live at one point in time. And all of a sudden, they discovered marijuana, and she's now on her 9th year, and unfortunately, her brain tumors are coming back, but she got 9 extra years of life. That was very moving to me. It's very moving to him, and it still continues to be moving for me. I want you to look at this not so much from a personal standpoint of view. I want you to look at it from a realistic standpoint of view. We were allowed 2 licenses in this town. One is already taken, and there is another one that is available. I personally think that you should really consider marijuana to be in the same category as alcohol. And we have plenty of liquor stores and plenty of bars in our town that are close to schools or parks. I ask you to look at this differently from, as I said, some of the other speakers. You know, it's just going to be part of our culture. It's going to be more a part of our culture as time goes on. It's certainly something that, were you to find it objectionable now, maybe 5 years from now, you'll all look at this and say, what were we even thinking about? It's changing, our culture is changing. I have changed my mind, and I really feel strongly that you should consider this on its merits. I believe it'll bring a certain vitality to the town. It'll bring income to the town. And I don't believe that you're going to find it harmful, not nearly as harmful as you find people jumping in their cars and driving down the street with 3 or 4 drinks in their belly. So I just ask you to consider it on its merits, and hope that you'll use good judgment.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and go back to council for comments. And we're dwindling away as council. Councilor Grauer was not feeling well, so he left.
Feel better, Brittany? In regards, it seems like we first started with the C2 and C3 zoning change. I don't have a strong feeling on C2 or C3, including them. I do have strong feelings on reducing, or if there is any interest in reducing the 500-foot buffer for direct pedestrian walking. Looking at, and I'd like to clarify, in addition to what James stated about Eagle County, is their 200 feet is as the crow flies. And so we can't compare, that's not apples to apples. And some of their exclusions is marijuana retail cannot be by open space, government-owned facility, so that includes town hall. Daycare, multifamily, and single-family residential. And that's 200 feet as the crow flies from all of those. Looking at other municipalities, the 500-foot buffer is very common. I do have concern by opening it up to C2 and C3, how it fits with the downtown vitality of frosted windows. Per the state's regulations, a marijuana facility needs to have frosted windows to 3/4 height so that minors cannot see the goods inside. That conflicts with our town of Basalt downtown zoning that windows shall not be frosted so that you can see into the business, and it seems like a vital, vibrant building and space that's welcoming. So right there's some rift there. And I really consider that we should negotiate this process incrementally. As it's been stated, this is a very, and I stated earlier, that this is a very early industry, and if we change a lot of regulations right now, we're gonna have genie out of the bottle. We're not going to be able to bring it back in. On the part that really hasn't been discussed much about is the 2 licenses versus 4 licenses. I'd say where I'm at, I'd like to keep it as it is on the licenses of 2 for recreational and 2 for medicinal. If there was some negotiation on here of going along and making some incremental changes, I would be open to the C2 and C3 zoning, but holding firm on the 500-foot buffer and the 2 licenses. Until both of our licenses are utilized, I don't see why we would allow more. That's where I'm at.
Gary?
As I said last time, I am open to a store in, the C2. I work in Aspen, I see what they've done. I don't think it is, I think there's very attractive stores. I mean, I hesitate to say the Thai massage has frosted windows. I can't see into that business, nor do I really want to, but I can't see into it. So I'm not against the C2 and C3 having it. We did go through a very long process on the buffers. When we were talking about buffers, we were talking about, I'd like to take more time before I would change the buffers, but I am okay with having it open to the C2 and C3. We do need to show the demand. We only have 1 store, that's why I asked it before. I don't think we need to open it to 4. We could keep it at 2. And so right now I'm open to putting it into the C2, C3, but I don't know if I want to change the buffers yet. I don't know if I'd vote for that. I want to go through a little bigger process on that because we did go through a pretty big process on the buffers, so. And yeah, I don't want to change the amount of stores yet.
Ditto.
I think I'm pretty much ditto.
Open it up to C2, C3.
Yeah.
Don't change the buffers.
So I'll just go back the way I understood it. Open it up to C2, C3. Don't change the buffers.
And two medical.
Keep it
Oh,
as
yeah, keep it as 2. I mean, I guess the only other things I would throw in is that I think in cities, even in Aspen, they have more than 1 block of downtown. We have 1 block of downtown, and so I would hate to lose more accessible vitality type uses, but that's just what is facing us, it looks like. Yeah, and I think by keeping it at 2, we kind of address the issue of demand, because there isn't, I think the population doesn't support opening it up to a lot of stores. So, anyway, that's where we are. And do you need a motion on this?
You need 3 votes to
And 3 votes.
pass anything, or you can take it.
Okay, do you have a motion?
Mayor, I motion that the town council approve ordinance number 24, series of 2016 on first reading with the ramifications stated, that only changing the zoning to C2, C3, and everything else to maintain the same.
Why don't you do a motion on 6B, which is the zoning, do that one separate and continue it, and then go, the licenses provisions are all in the 6C.
Okay. With no changes, or with no?
Do you want her to make both at the same time?
No, I
No,
think it'd be
separate.
Okay.
easier if we did the first, right, James?
Okay, so,
The zoning just changes the zoning, not the buffers, correct?
No, correct.
Okay.
okay. So Mayor, I move that the town council approve ordinance number 24, series of 2016, item 6B on first reading, and continue and set the public hearing and second reading for October 11th, 2016.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? There's only like
one of us. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Got another?
I'll let someone else do it.
I don't think, I mean, we don't wanna change any of the,
Right. So, so nothing is changing on the other one?
Here's a question. There were some minor changes to, is the police chief here? There's some changes that were to incorporate some ways the cameras are dealt with and stuff. There's some of those changes in here.
you just bring that to the October 11th for review?
Okay.
We're not
Because I don't think
changing
you're gonna
anything.
get a motion on it.
Is
So-
the number changing? What's
No.
proposed?
Well, no,
We're not, I mean, I didn't hear any of us, none of us were wanting to change. Basically just open the zoning up, but not the buffers, not the number of stores, not anything, so. But Greg was sitting in the back. Was there something that you wanted us to change?
No, we were in the process
Cleaning some stuff up.
possibly changing the ordinance, it was just a standardization, so it was just suggestions. Like house cleaning? Like house cleaning, yes ma'am.
You could bring those house cleaning items to that October 11th, because I'd be happy to clean that piece up of the regulations. Does that work?
yeah, why don't you, not, I guess, you would just bring it as a separate ordinance, a separate, as a separate.
Make a motion to table it.
Well, I need to raise a question to make sure we're getting this right. We're on page 256 of 298. And you too, Susan, are what are these numbers that are in the packet correct? And the total number of,
Well, let's just do this. How about, I make a motion to continue ordinance number 25, series 2016 to October 11th.
Okay, is there a second?
second.
Further discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Nay. I liked where we got to tonight. It's solid, we're set on it, but yeah.
We were gonna have to go
Yeah.
into a
I just wanted-
discussion about
yeah,
these
yeah.
items, just,
You
okay.
got, well, we can clean that up.
October 11th,
Next time.
yes.
October 11th.
Okay, so our next item is public hearing and first reading, oh, wait a minute, got that one already. That was it. All right,
And Pam, the first ordinance was, 6A was to the 11th as well.
yeah.
Yes. It was good.
Did you have a question, sir?
No, she said the 11th.
Hey, just one second, we got a question here.
Just for clarity's sake, could you please put the map back up of downtown? And I'm not sure I understand the practical effects of what you did on downtown. I just want to make sure I understand that.
You've taken over.
The yellow building is got.
So the yellow building right now is not eligible for marijuana shops, but with the zoning, that yellow building, that yellow area would be?
Correct.
So right now in downtown, there's no place where a shop could open.
Correct.
But with the approval of this, that yellow shaded spot will,
If it goes on second.
and where is that, what's at that location?
It's the,
Yellowbird, art area, there's a nail salon upstairs, across the street is Aspen Medical Care. Vegas River is, the Transformation or Acupuncture
the window
and
stores in there.
Where is it in relation to Riverside Grill?
That is a really nasty graphic.
Okay, that helps a lot. Thank you.
All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. We don't need them. Nobody else does it.
I like Pam. Don't you like Pam?